Rain fell over Portland in a gentle curtain, weaving silver threads across the windows of St. Vincent's Hospital. The night was deep, the kind where the world felt small, tucked beneath a blanket of clouds. Inside, the ward breathed with a quiet rhythm. Monitors hummed their steady songs, and the air carried the sharp tang of antiseptic, softened by the warmth of human care. Nurses moved like shadows, their sneakers whispering against polished floors. Among them was Lily Harper, a nurse of 29, her presence a flicker of light in the stillness. Her blonde curls, pinned in a careless knot, bounced as she walked, and her green eyes held a spark that could coax a smile from even the weariest patient. To those she tended, she was a burst of sunshine, her laughter a melody that eased pain. Yet beneath her easy grin, a heaviness lingered, a story she told no one. Lily paused by a chart, her fingers tracing the edge of a clipboard. 5 years ago, her world had cracked open. Her father, Tom Harper, a carpenter with hands rough as cedar, had faced pancreatic cancer at 58. The disease was relentless, stealing his strength month by month until he was a shadow in a hospital bed not unlike these. The bills piled high, $80,000 that swallowed their savings and left Lily and her mother Grace tethered to debt. Grace, now 62, bore her own battle. Rheumatoid arthritis twisted her hands, stealing the knitting needles she once wielded with pride. Their one-bedroom apartment with its peeling wallpaper and single window held them close, but the rent demanded Lily's every overtime shift. She worked until her bones ached, her smile a shield against the fear that they might lose even that small haven. Once Lily had dreamed of art. As a girl, she sketched Portland's bridges, their steel arcs alive in her charcoals, colors bursting across pages now yellowed in a box. She imagined galleries, a life where her hands created beauty instead of bandaging wounds. Tom's illness changed that. Her sketchbook, tattered and heavy with dust, lay in her locker, its pages mostly blank. Yet she carried it still, a stubborn hope she barely admitted, even to herself. Her art lived now in smaller ways, in the way she tucked a blanket around a shivering child, or drew a cartoon dog on a patient's cast. It was enough, she told herself, though sometimes, in the quiet, her heart whispered otherwise. Tonight, Lily moved with purpose, her scrubs a soft blue, faintly wrinkled from hours on her feet. She hummed a tune, Billie Holiday's Blue Moon, low and smooth as she checked an elderly man's IV. Mr. Dawson, his hair white as frost, chuckled weakly. "You're a gift, Lily," he rasped, and she winked, hiding the ache in her chest. She adjusted his pillow, her touch gentle, then slipped to the nurse's station, rain tapping the windows like a friend calling her name. Her phone buzzed, a text to Grace. "Home soon, love you," she typed, her thumb lingering on the screen. Grace would be awake, her hands too stiff to sleep. Worrying over bills Lily refused to let her see. Lily tucked her locket beneath her collar, a silver oval holding Tom's faded photo. His laugh, warm as summer, echoed in her memory, and she closed her eyes, just for a moment, to hold it close. The locket was her anchor, a piece of him she carried through every shift. She would hear the other nurses chatter, their voices low with gossip about a new patient, some billionaire tucked away in room 312. Wealth meant nothing to Lily. Her world was here, in the beep of machines, the weight of her sketchbook, the promise to Grace that they'd make it through. She glanced at the rain, its rhythm steady, and felt a flicker of something, hope or longing, she couldn't name. A coworker, Sarah, leaned over, her voice a half-whisper. "Heard about the VIP? Comatose, big money." Lila's lips quirked, uninterested. "Just another soul needing care," she said, her tone light but firm. She grabbed a chart, her fingers brushing the locket, and headed down the hall. The rain grew louder, a soft roar that seemed to follow her, as if the night itself knew something she'd out. Her steps were sure, her hum unbroken, but her heart carried a question she rarely voiced. Could she ever be more than this? A nurse who gave everything, hoping it might one day fill the emptiness Tom left behind. For now, she walked on, her smile a quiet vow to keep going, for Grace, for her patients, for the girl who still dreamed in colors she no longer drew. Lily Harper walked the quiet halls of St. Vincent's Hospital, her sneakers whispering against the linoleum, the rain outside a steady drum that matched her heartbeat. The ward was a world of its own at this hour, the night shift weaving a spell of stillness broken only by the soft beep of machines. Her earlier rounds lingered in her mind, Mr. Dawson's frail smile, the weight of her locket against her chest. She carried her father's memory with every step, but tonight something new waited. Room 312, the chart read, a name that sparked whispers among the nurses, Elliot Vance, billionaire, comatose. To Lily, he was no different from any patient, just a soul needing her care, wealth as meaningless as the rain that fell beyond the windows. She pushed open the door, the hinges giving a faint creak. The room was dim, lit only by a single lamp that cast a warm glow across a narrow bed. Monitors flickered with green lines, their rhythm steady, a heartbeat captured in light. A basin of warm water sat on a tray, steam curling upward, and a clean towel hung neatly beside it. Lily set her chart down, her fingers brushing the locket as she took a breath. Bathing a patient was routine, but the stillness of a coma patient always felt heavier, like tending to someone caught between worlds. She hummed softly, Billie Holiday's tune fading into the air, and approached the bed. Elliot Vance lay there, his face half-deshened yet striking even in sleep. His dark hair fell across his brow, matted from weeks untouched, and a faint scar curved above his lip, a story she could only guess. His chest rose and fell, slow and even, the gown loose against his frame. Lily spoke as she always did, her voice a gentle thread in the quiet. "You're safe here, Mr. Vance," she said, her words more for herself than him. Portland rains got a way of washing worries away. She unbuttoned his gown with care, folding it back to reveal skin, pale from stillness. The sponge was warm in her hand, and she worked slowly, tracing circles across his chest, her touch as tender as if he could feel it. The rain grew louder, a low roar that seemed to press against the walls. Lily had noticed the monitors flicker, dealt see the faint twitch of Elliot's fingers on the sheet. She leaned closer, adjusting the gown, her hum unbroken, a melody to fill the silence. The sponge slipped slightly, and she steadied it, her eyes on her task. Then, without warning, his eyes opened, gray, sharp, alive. They locked onto hers, piercing through the dim light. Lily's breath caught, the sponge falling from her hand, water splashing across her scrubs and pooling on the floor. "You're awake," she whispered, her voice barely a sound, her heart a wild drum in her chest. Elliot blinked, his gaze clouded but intense, like a man surfacing from a dream. "Who are you?" he rasped, his voice rough, unused, each word a struggle. Lily froze, her hands hovering, caught between shock and instinct. His eyes held her, searching, and she saw something there, gratitude, confusion, a spark that felt like more than chance. She forced herself to move, pressing 2 fingers to his wrist. His pulse raced, strong but uneven, a sign of life she hadn't expected. "You're okay," she said, her voice steadier now, though her hands trembled. "I'm Lily, your nurse. Just hold on." He tried to speak again, his lips parting. "You brought me back," he murmured, the words faint, almost lost to the rain song. His head tilted, his eyes never leaving her, and for a moment the room shrank to just them, the monitor's hum a distant echo. Lily's cheeks warmed, her scrubs clinging damply to her knees, the spilled water a small chaos at her feet. She reached for the call button, her fingers slipping once before pressing it hard. "Doctor," she said into the speaker, her voice tight. "Room 312 has awake." Footsteps pounded down the hall, a flurry of nurses and a doctor bursting through the door. Lily stepped back, her breath shallow, as they crowded around Elliot, their voices a jumble of vitals and orders. "Check his pupils," someone said. "BP 140 over 90, another called. Lily pressed herself against the wall, her wet scrubs cold now, watching as the doctor shone a light into Elliot's eyes. He was weaker, his lids fluttering, but his gaze found her again, a fleeting anchor before he slipped into a lighter sleep, exhaustion claiming him once more. Sarah, the night nurse, grabbed Lily's arm, her eyes wide. "You did this," she said, her voice awed. "Has been out for weeks and you woke him." Lily shook her head, her throat tight. "I just bathed him," she said, but the words felt thin, like they couldn't hold the weight of what had happened. The doctor, a gray-haired man named Patel, nodded at her. "Good work, Harper. Your care made a difference." Lily forced a smile, her hands still shaking, the sponge forgotten on the floor. She slipped out as the team worked, closing the door behind her. The hall was quiet again, the rain a steady whisper, but her world had shifted. Her locket felt heavier, her father's face a silent question. What had just happened? She leaned against the wall, her damp scrubs clinging, and replayed Elliot's eyes, gray as the storm, alive in a way that stirred her soul. "You brought me back," Hedge said, and though she couldn't untangle, the hospital hummed around her, unaware, but Lily knew this moment was different. A beginning she hadn't sought, a miracle born in the rain. Lily Harper lingered in the hallway of St. Vincent's Hospital, her damp scrubs cold against her skin, the memory of Elliot Vance's gray eyes burning brighter than the fluorescent lights above. Rain tapped the windows, a restless rhythm that followed her from room 312, where she had bathed a comatose man only to see him wake, his voice a whisper that stirred her soul. "You brought me back," he had said. And though hours had passed, those words clung to her, heavy as the locket nestled beneath her collar. The ward hummed with its usual life, nurses murmuring about the billionaire's miracle, their voices fading as Lily tried to anchor herself in routine. Charts, vitals, patient smiles, these were her world, yet tonight felt different, like stepping onto a path she had not chosen. Morning arrived, Portland draped in a mist that softened the city's edges. Lily returned for her shift, her eyes heavy from a sleepless night. Her sketchbook lay open at home, a half-drawn face, sharp jaw and scarred lip, staring up from the page. She had torn it out, folded it into her pocket, a secret beside her father's photo in the locket. At the nurse's station, Sarah leaned close, her grin wide. "Has asking for you, Lily," she said. "The billionaire calls you his angel." Lily's cheeks warmed, her laugh a nervous flutter. "Just doing my job," she replied, clutching a chart to steady herself. But her feet moved toward the private wing, drawn by a force stronger than reason, her heart a quiet drumbeat of curiosity. Elliot sat in bed, sunlight spilling through the window, catching the planes of his face. He was less pale now, his dark hair neat, his presence filling the room despite the IV tethered to his arm. "You're Lily Harper," he said, his voice clear, each word deliberate, warm. "I owe you everything." She shifted, uneasy under his gaze, her fingers grazing her locket. "Just my job, Mr. Vance," she murmured, her eyes on his chart, pulse steady, vitals strong. "Call me Elliot," he said, a smile breaking through, soft and unguarded. She nodded, her throat tight, sensing this moment was a thread pulling her somewhere new. He spoke of the accident, a yacht torn by a coastal storm, waves that stole weeks from him. Doctors marveled at his awakening, but he looked at her, his voice low. "It was you, Lily, not just medicine." Her breath caught, and she adjusted his pillow, her hands busy to hide the flush creeping up her neck. She didn't know how to hold his gratitude, its weight pressing against her heart. Before she left, he reached for her hand, his touch light but firm. "I'm building something," he said, "a cancer center for my sister Clara. Leukemia took her at 25. I need someone people trust, someone real to help me. Will you join me?" Lily stood frozen, his words a spark in the quiet. A cancer center. Free care, no bills like the ones that crushed her family after her father's death. It was a dream she had carried for Tom, for Grace, for every patient turned away. But she was no leader, just a nurse with debts and a mother's fading hands to hold. "I'm not the right person," she said, her voice small. Elliot leaned closer, his eyes steady. "You woke me, Lily. You're exactly who I need." She saw Grace's tired smile, the apartment's thin walls, and felt a tug, hope, sharp and unfamiliar. "I'll think about it," she said, slipping out, her sketchbook a quiet weight in her bag. At home, Grace sat on their worn couch, her hands curled stiffly around a mug. Lily shared Elliot's offer, her voice hesitant, and Grace's eyes lit up. "Your dad gave his heart to strangers," she said, her words soft but sure. "This is for him, Lily. Do it." The memory of Tom's laugh, warm as summer, filled her, and she nodded, her choice clear. The next day she found Elliot in a hospital conference room, rain streaking the windows, papers scattered like pieces of a dream. "Imin," she said, her voice firm. His smile was bright, reaching his eyes, and he handed her a folder. "Clara's Light," he called it, "a haven for Portland's weary. You'll make it real." Their work took root, a rhythm of planning and purpose, Portland's drizzle a constant companion. They met in quiet corners, hospital cafeterias, community halls, takeout boxes piling up as night fell. Lily laughed when Elliot spilled soy sauce on his tie, her teasing light, and he grinned, his polished edges softening. He marveled at her coffee orders, triple-shot vanilla lattes, and she caught herself lingering on his laugh, her guard slipping. One evening, sorting flyers, he saw her doodle a bridge on a napkin, its lines bold and alive. "You're an artist," he said, his voice certain, and her cheeks burned. "Was once," she mumbled, but he shook his head. "You still are." The next day, a leather sketchbook arrived at the nurse's station, its cover etched. "For your dreams, Elliot." She traced the words, her heart a tangle of warmth and fear, and that night she sketched his face. The lines gentle, a confession she hid. Their talks deepened, rain a soft backdrop as they shared fragments of themselves. Elliot spoke of Clara, her courage, how her death drove him to build an empire, leaving him rich, but hollow. "I've been alone in crowds," he said, his voice raw, and Lily nodded, her locket heavy. "My dad fought cancer," she said, her words quiet. 5 years gone, and the bills took everything else. His hand brushed hers, a fleeting warmth, and she let it linger, a moment neither named. She wanted to trust him, to believe in this dream, but life had taught her hope could break as easily as it bloomed. Months into their work, Lily sorted files in Elliot's makeshift office, rain a low roar outside. A faded letter slipped from a folder, its edges soft with age, dated 15 years back. Her breath stopped as she read, "To the donor at St. Vincent's, your blood gave my sister time. Thank you, Elliot Vance." The donor's file, half blurred, listed T. Harper. Her father, Tom, who gave blood every month, until his own fight began. Eileen's hands trembled, the letter a bridge to a past she hadn't known they shared. Why hadn't Elliot told her? Did he pick her for this, knowing who she was, or was it chance? Her sketchbook lay open, his face staring up, and doubt crept in, cold as the rain. She hid the letter, her heart a storm. At home, Grace slept, her breathing uneven, and Lily sat by her, sketching to still her mind. The lines were sharp, her father's face blurring with Elliot's. She wanted to confront him, to demand the truth, but fear held her back. What if this was a game, a billionaire's whim? The next day, she smiled through their meeting, her voice steady, but her eyes slid past his, the letter a weight in her pocket. He didn't seem to notice, his focus on blueprints, his trust in her unchanged. But the hospital murmured, a clerk catching her unease, whispering to others about secrets in the billionaire's files. Trouble bloomed like a weed. Vanessa Klein swept into St. Vincent's, her heels clicking sharp on the tiles, her presence a chill in the air. Elliot's ex-girlfriend, a PR consultant with eyes that cut, entered his office unannounced, her smile polished but cold. Lily, dropping off flyers, caught her name, the room tightening. "You're the nurse," Vanessa said, her voice sweet, venom beneath. "Helping Elliot's project, how quaint." Lily's fingers tightened on her locket, her reply calm but firm. "Just doing my part." Vanessa stayed, meeting donors with a charm Lily couldn't match, her words praising Clara's light while her glances dismissed Lily as nothing. The whispers grew. At a community meeting, Vanessa spoke first, her voice smooth, stealing Lily's role. Elliot, caught in a call, arrived late, leaving Lily to face questions alone. A donor asked her qualifications, and she faltered, her nurse's heart no match for their world of wealth. Vanessa's lips curved, and Lily felt small, her sketchbook a quiet anchor in her bag. Later, Elliot found her, his voice soft. Sorry, Lily. I should have been there." His hand grazed hers, warm, but doubt lingered. Had he meant to leave her exposed, or was she chasing shadows? Then came Derek Holt, a ghost from her past, standing in her apartment doorway, his smile thin, eyes hungry. Her cousin, gone since Tom's funeral, now back with a schemer's glint. "Heard you're with a billionaire," he said, his voice low. "Grace needs you to think big, Lil. Get us out of this hole." Her stomach twisted, his words a blade. He wanted Elliot's money, her future traded for his greed. "I won't," she said, her voice shaking. But he left a folded paper on her table. "Think about it," he said, and vanished. The paper held emails, stark and cruel, claiming Elliot planned to sell the center's land for profit, betraying Clara's dream. Lily's heart sank, the letter in her pocket heavier, her trust fraying like old thread. A donor gala loomed, Clara's light's first big stage. Lily arrived in a borrowed dress, her locket her only adornment, feeling out of place among chandeliers and wine. Vanessa orchestrated it all, her elegance a contrast to Lily's unease. Elliot was delayed, Vanessa's doing, and Lily faced the crowd alone, their eyes skeptical. A woman asked about the center's future, and Lily spoke of hope, of Tom, but her voice shook, Vanessa's smile a silent jab. Whispers spread, Lily's a nobody, a nurse plane above her station. She fled to a balcony, rain cool on her face, her sketchbook clenched tight, wondering if Elliot's absence was a sign, if the letter held a truth she feared to face. Grace sensed her turmoil, her voice weak over the phone. "You're enough, Lily," she said, but days later she collapsed, her arthritis flaring, landing in St. Vincent's ER. Lily sat by her, guilt-sharp. Had her doubts distracted her from home? Derek called, his voice smug. "Saw the gala flop. Elliot's using you, Lil. Those emails prove it." She hung up, her hands trembling, but the letter burned, her father's name a question she couldn't silence. Elliot found her in the ER, his eyes worried. "I'm here," he said, but she pulled away, the letter a wall between them, her heart torn between hope and fear. Clara's light a dream she might lose to shadows she couldn't name. Lily Harper stood at the edge of the muddy field, rain falling in heavy sheets, turning Portland's earth to a churned sea. The groundbreaking ceremony for Clara's light stretched before her, a dream carved from hope and loss, now trembling under a storm's weight. Scaffolding loomed above a makeshift stage, its steel glinting wetly, a promise of the cancer center to come. Lily's borrowed coat clung to her shoulders, her locket cold against her skin, the letter still hidden in her pocket, its words T. Harper, a silent ache. She had spoken to the crowd moments ago, her voice steady despite the doubts gnawing her heart, Elliot's absence, Vanessa's whispers, Derek's threats. Grace sat nearby, frail in a wheelchair, her smile fierce despite her pain, a beacon Lily clung to. But the air felt wrong, heavy with more than rain, and when she glanced up, a beam swayed, its bowls loose, a danger she couldn't name. The crowd was small, donors scared off by Vanessa's rumors, their faces blurred under umbrellas. Lily's words had faltered, her talk of free care, of her father's fight, drowned by the storm's growl. She stepped down, her boots sinking, and moved to Grace, adjusting her blanket. "You did good, honey," Grace said, her voice thin but warm, and Lily forced a smile, her eyes scanning for Elliot. He was late again, Vanessa's doing, and the sting of it cut deeper than the rain. A young volunteer, Mia, barely 20, approached, her ponytail dripping, her sketch pad tucked under her arm. She'd bonded with Lily over art, her shy drawings a mirror to Lily's own. "Can I help set up?" she asked, and Lily nodded, grateful, pointing her to the stage. A gust tore through, sharp and sudden, and Lily's gaze snapped upward, The scaffolding groaned, a low wail that froze her blood. She saw it then, a bolt missing, another loose, the beam tilting dangerously. "Get back!" she shouted, her voice raw, waving at the crowd. "Move! Now!" People scattered, umbrellas tumbling, but Mia was still near the stage, adjusting a banner, oblivious. Grace's wheelchair caught in the mud, her hands trembling, and Lily's heart seized, a scream building in her throat. She ran, slipping, her hands outstretched, but the beam fell, a sickening crack splitting the air, crashing down in a cloud of dirt and steel. Dust choked her lungs, the rain blinding, but Lily clawed forward, her boots heavy with mud. "Grace!" she gasped, her voice breaking, seeing the wheelchair half buried, its frame twisted. Mia lay nearby, her leg pinned, a soft cry escaping her lips. Lily dropped to her knees, her hands tearing at debris, splinters biting her skin. Grace's face was pale, her eyes fluttering, a faint cough the only sign she lived. "Hold on, Mom!" Lily sobbed, her fingers bloodied, the locket swinging free, her father's photo catching the storm's dim light. Mia's hand reached out, weak, and Lily gripped it, her voice fierce. "You're okay, Mia. I've got you." Shouts broke through the rain, a figure running toward them, suit-soaked, hair plastered to his face. Elliot, his eyes wild, his arm already bleeding from a cut she hadn't seen. "Lily," he yelled, sliding to her side, his hands grabbing the beam above Grace. "Help me lift," he said, his voice steady despite the strain, and Lily nodded, her strength surging, a fire born of fear. They heaved, mud sucking at their feet, the beam shifting inch by inch. Mia's leg came free, a bystander pulling her clear, but Grace was deeper, her breathing shallow, every second a blade in Lily's chest. Elliot's face twisted, his arm trembling, blood mixing with rain. "I'm here," he said, his eyes on hers, and she saw it, the truth she doubted, raw and open. They lifted again, her hands burning, her locket a steady pulse against her heart, and the beam rose, just enough. She dragged Grace free, her mother's weight light, too light, in her arms. Grace coughed, her eyes opening, and Lily wept, holding her close. Mud and tears won. "You're safe," she whispered, her voice cracking, the rain washing her face clean. Elliot sank beside her, his breath ragged, his hand finding hers. She looked at him, rain blurring his features, and the letter burned in her mind. T. Harper, her father's name, a secret she'd carried too long. "Why didn't you tell me?" she said, her voice low, shaking. "About the donor, my dad." His eyes widened, confusion giving way to realization, and he shook his head, rain dripping from his hair. "I didn't know, Lily," he said, his voice raw. "Clara was dying. I wrote to everyone who gave blood, dozens of letters. I never saw the names, never knew it was him, your father." He reached for her, his hand steady despite his blood. "I chose you, for your heart, not for any past." Lily's breath hitched, the letter's weight lifting, her doubt crumbling like the mud beneath them. She saw her father's face, his quiet giving, and knew Elliot spoke truth, his sacrifice here, now, proof louder than words. "I hid it," she said, her voice breaking, tears falling free. "I was scared to trust you." His fingers tightened on hers, warm in the cold, and he nodded. No judgment, only understanding. "We're here now," he said, and she leaned into him, just for a moment, Grace safe between them, the storm a fading roar. Voices cut through, security guards shouting, their boots pounding. A guard, Tom's old friend from the hospital, had seen a man tampering with the scaffolding before the ceremony, a figure fleeing into the rain. Derek, Lily knew. Her cousin's greed, a poison, turned real. The guard had followed, calling police, and they'd caught him at a gas station, his bag stuffed with tools and cash, Vanessa's name in his phone. Vanessa, pale in the crowd, tried to slip away, but Maureen Tate, the board member who doubted Lily, stepped forward, her face grim. She'd found emails, Vanessa's orders to disrupt, to ruin Lily, and handed them over, her voice low. "I was wrong," she said to Lily, and walked away, her pride broken. Police swarmed, Derek's curses faint as they cuffed him, Vanessa's denials shrill until evidence silenced her. Lily held Grace, her mother's hand weak but warm, and watched them go, a weight lifting not just from the beam but from her heart. Mia, her leg bandaged, limped to her, tears in her eyes. "You saved me," she said, and Lily hugged her, her locket pressing against them both. Elliot stood close, his arm around her, blood staining his sleeve, but his eyes were steady, a promise she finally believed. The rain slowed, the storm breaking, and Lily felt it, a clarity born of chaos. Her father's love, her mother's strength, Elliot's truth, all one in the mud-soaked field where Clara's light would rise. Lily Harper sat by her mother's bedside in St. Vincent's Hospital. The rain outside softened to a whisper, Portland's storm a memory now. Grace slept, her face peaceful, her hands still curled from arthritis but warm under Lily's touch. The chaos of the ground breaking lay hours behind them, the mud, the fallen beam, the fear that had nearly taken everything. Grace's cough had steadied, her breathing even, a miracle Lily held close, her locket resting open against her chest. Her father's photo, faded but clear, seemed to smile, a quiet presence in the room's hush. Elliot Vance stood by the window, his arm bandaged, his suit replaced by a borrowed sweatshirt, his gray eyes soft as they watched her. They had survived, not just the storm but the doubts that had torn at her heart, and now, in this stillness, something new was growing, fragile but real. Lily traced Grace's knuckles, her voice low. "You scared me, Mom," she said, and Grace stirred, her eyes fluttering open. "Had to keep you on your toes," she murmured, her smile weak but bright, and Lily laughed, tears spilling, a sound that filled the room with light. Elliot stepped closer, his hand brushing Lily's shoulder, and she didn't pull away, his warmth a steady anchor. They stayed like that, the three of them, the hospital's hum a gentle backdrop, time slowing to let them breathe. Lily thought of the letter T. Harper, now just a piece of paper in her locker, its mystery solved. Elliot hadn't known her father, hadn't chosen her for any past, only for who she was, a truth she felt in her bones. Later, in the hospital's quiet garden, rain gave way to starlight, Portland's sky clear for the first time in weeks. Lily walked with Elliot, her boots scuffing the path, her locket glinting under the moon. He carried a small box, his fingers nervous, and stopped by a bench, the air cool and sweet. "I read Clara's diary last night," he said, his voice soft, like he was sharing a secret. "She wrote about heroes, ordinary people who changed everything, like your dad giving blood, like you, Lily, waking me, building this with me." Lily's throat tightened, her eyes on his, seeing the boy who'd lost his sister, the man who'd found her. "I was scared," she said, her voice trembling, "scared to believe in you, in any of it." He nodded, his hand finding hers, warm and sure. He opened the box, revealing a ring, simple silver etched with a tiny bridge, her favorite sketch brought to life. "Lily," he said, his voice breaking, "you woke my heart, not just my body. Be my home, my partner, forever." Her breath caught, tears falling, and she laughed, her carefree spirit rising through the pain. "Yes," she said, her voice clear, and slipped the ring on, its weight perfect, her locket brushing it, her father's love woven into this new promise. They kissed, slow and deep, the garden silent, stars above a witness to a love born from miracles, from trust rebuilt in the rain. Spring came to Portland, the city blooming under a sky no longer gray. Clara's light rose where mud had once held sway, its white walls gleaming, gardens bursting with roses, a haven for those who'd known too many bills, too little hope. Lily stood at its opening, her dress soft blue, her locket shining, her sketchbook no longer hidden. The walls held her art, vibrant drawings of Portland's skyline, patients' faces, her father's smile, each stroke a piece of her heart. Donors filled the atrium, their doubts gone, Vanessa's lies a faded echo. The center was free, treating hundreds, a promise kept to Clara, to Tom, to every soul who'd fought and lost. Grace attended, stronger now, her wheelchair gone, a new shawl around her shoulders, a gift from Lily's first paycheck free of debt. Elliot had bought her a cottage near the center, small but bright, its windows open to lilacs, a home Grace could call hers. She hugged Lily, her hands steadier, her voice thick. "Tom's here," she said, her eyes on the mural Lily had painted, a bridge under sunlight, its arcs bold. "I'm so proud, honey." Lily held her tight, tears warm, her mother's strength a gift she'd never lose, the locket a quiet pulse between them. Mia, the volunteer, stood nearby, her leg healed, a cane no longer needed. She unveiled Lily's mural, her smile shy but proud, and the crowd clapped, their cheers a wave. Mia had sketched with Lily in recovery, their pencils a bond, and now she studied art, her future bright. "Thank you," she whispered, and Lily squeezed her hand, seeing her younger self, a girl who dared to dream. Miss Clara Evans, Lily's old teacher, was there too, her gray hair catching the light. She'd hung Lily's sketches in a local gallery, a show that sold 3 pieces, the money tucked away for Grace, for paint, for a life Lily was reclaiming, stroke by stroke. Elliot spoke to the crowd, his voice steady, Lily at his side. "This is for Clara," he said, "for every family fighting alone. For Lily, who made it real." He looked at her, his ring on her finger, and she smiled, her heart full, the center a legacy they built together, brick by brick. Donations poured in, millions pledged, the hospital board now allies. Maureen Tate's apology a quiet footnote. Vanessa's trial played on distant screens, her wealth gone, Derek's cell a cold end to his greed. But Lily barely noticed, her world here, in the laughter of patience, the hum of hope. Months later, Lily and Elliot married in a quiet garden, petals falling soft as rain, Grace beaming, Mia scattering flowers. Portland glowed beyond, its bridges alive under dusk, the city theirs. They moved to a house near Claris Light, its windows wide, a studio for Lily's art, a piano for Elliot's late-night jazz. Grace lived close, her cottage a haven, her knitting needles clicking again, blankets piling for the center's children. Lily painted, her canvases bold, her father's face in every line, her dreams no longer boxed away. One evening they sat by the center's fountain, its ripples catching spring's light, Grace sketching nearby, Mia at her side, a pencil dancing. An older man approached, his face lined, cancer-free because of Clara's light. "You're my miracle," he said to Lily, his hand on hers, and she smiled, tears rising, her locket warm. Elliot's arms circled her, his ring a steady weight, and she leaned into him, her voice soft. "We made it," she said, and he nodded, his lips brushing her hair. "We did, love," he murmured, his voice her home. They watched the sunset, Portland's skyline gold, the rain a distant song. Grace laughed with Mia, their pencils scratching, a new sketch taking shape, a bridge like Lily's, its arcs reaching forward. The locket rested against her heart, her father's love woven into every moment, her mother's strength, her husband's promise. The center's hum. All one. Lily looked at Elliot, at Grace, at the fountain's glow, and felt peace. A miracle not just of waking, but of living, of loving, of building something that would stand long after the rain had gone.